Hi everyone! For this video, we are going to talk about first language, second language, and the native language, mother tongue, and foreign language. So before we dig into the languages, let us now first know what is the definition of language. So when we say language, it is through this means that they could transfer set of meanings and achieve some degree of mutual understanding. If we are going to this, for example, this is the language that I am using for us to communicate. It is for us to exchange set of words, meanings, for us to have mutual understanding. So how can we say that we understood these languages? And that's where the next slide, the language acquisition comes up. When we say language acquisition, it is the process by which humans acquire the capacity to perceive and comprehend language, as well as to produce and use words and sentences to communicate. So it is how we perceive and comprehend languages for us to what? To have a mutual understanding, and that's where the communication or the language comes up. And after that, we will now talk about first language. When we say first language, it is the all normal children acquire at least one language as they grow up. Each child acquires a language that is most spoken in their environment. So, for example, children who pick up a second language from long periods spent in interaction, constantly using the language with the native speakers of the language as their language one. So, when we say, So when we say first language, it is the language that we first acquired, mastered, and learned to speak fluently, especially when we are growing up. And I grew up here in Agusan del Sur, and my mother taught me how to speak Bisaya, and Bisaya is my first language. For the second one, we will have the second language. When we say second language, it is the conscious effort to acquire a language. Then they are trying to acquire a second language. So after learning the first language, when you are learning the first language, it is what? You are learning it with your instinct, unconsciously. It's like a you adopt the language because it is believed in innatist theory that there are at least some aspects of language which must already be present in the child at birth. The language, it is the language acquisition device. It is the LAD. If I am not mistaken, it is Noam Chomsky who said that every child has the language acquisition device that is within us from the moment we were born. And that's why it is easy for us to adopt and learn languages. So, for the next one, we will have the second language. And it is also the same when we are acquiring a language, but this time from the word second, it is the second or the number 2 language that you speak, you learned, and you acquired, and you mastered it. Okay, that's the second language. For that example, we will have Japanese students in an English class in Japan are learning English as a foreign language. But if those same students were in English class in US, they would be learning English as a second language. So, if those Japanese students are not in Japan but in the USA, and they're learning English, they are learning English as their second language. For me, as a Filipino who grew up in Agusan del Sur, I learned to speak Bisaya first, but my second language is Tagalog because when growing up, I learned Tagalog in school, in elementary. So after the first language and second language, we will now move to the native language. When we say native language, in most cases, the term native language refers to the language that a person acquires in early childhood because it is spoken in the family. So, what language you first learn is your native language. For me, the first language that I learned was Bisaya. That's where I came from Agusan del Sur. So that is my native language. May pinagmulan. Nagmula ako sa probinsya ng Agusan del Sur and we are talking Bisaya. So that is my native language. For the mother tongue refers to the first language learned at home in childhood and still understood by the person at the time the data was collected. So it is the same, but mother tongue, gaya din ng sabi ko, if you know how to speak Bisaya, that is your mother tongue. Kung ano yung unang or like yung tinuro ng mama mo sa'yo. Ganon. But when you are from other country and other people will ask you, oh, what's your native language? So since you are a Filipino, you're going to answer that my native language is Filipino. Okay. Next one, we will have a foreign language. When we say foreign language, it is a language not widely spoken and used by the people of a community, society, and nation. For example, Spanish is a foreign language in Canada. So in Canada, they don't speak Spanish, right? So when they hear the language Spanish, it's new to them. They're not familiar with that one. Why? Because in Canada they speak English, and when they will hear people talking Spanish, for them Spanish is a foreign language. And here in the Philippines, if we hear other people talking Japanese, Korean, Spanish, Finnish, especially English, those are foreign language to us Filipinos because we are not familiar with any of those languages. For the next one, for the final presentation of my discussion, we will now have the different types of speaker. We first have here above is the monolingual. When we say monolingual, from the word mono, it means one. A person who is monolingual, he is a person who mastered and know how to speak one languages. It means that he mastered it. He knows how to speak this language. And when we say bilingual, he speaks and mastered 2 languages. And the third and last type of speaker is the multilingual. And the third and last type of speaker is multilingual. It is a person who speaks 3 or more than languages, but he also mastered it. Okay? So, let's now move on to the differences and similarities of the first and second languages. We have the begins with telegraphic speech for the first language, can begin with full sentences. That's so easy to understand, right? Is a natural part of daily life. And for the second language is a new aspect in the learner's life. So when you are learning your first language, it's just like, oh, it's part of your life. It's like a normal thing for you to adopt it. But when you are learning your second language, it is very hard for you since you are not familiar with it and you are consciously what? Obtaining, understanding, and adopting the language. Is based in universal grammar by itself, has a base, and for the second language, has a basis in the first language grammar. Next is doesn't require conscious effort, and for the second language, it requires conscious effort. That's what I mentioned a while ago. And it is based in listening as a first resource. For the second language, it's based in content that involves technical knowledge of the language. And for the first language, doesn't require instruction. So when we are learning our first language, it doesn't have any instruction, right? That okay, since you're learning your first language, it is English. So for you to obtain and adopt the language, you must first understood and study morphology, phonology, semantics, pragmatics, and other things, especially subject verb agreement. Okay, it doesn't work that way when you are learning your first language. But if you are learning your second language, it requires instruction. Why? For example, yes, I am a Bisaya, but when I am trying to learn my second language, which is English, of course, I need to know the basic, at least the instructions on how I am going to say it, especially the right pronunciation. How am I supposed to speak it? How am I supposed to conduct or share or create a sentence for what? For me to have a right or correct way of saying it for other people who also speaks the language to understand me. So that is for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching and listening. I hope you learned a lot in our lesson today. Have a great day. Ingat. Thank you.